Yeah, my hair looking quite fine. Hells! Alright guys, today I wanted to talk about some new deadly sins over here. I got 22. The 7 common ones, the 7 new ones. I call them the 7 old deadly sins, the 7 present deadly sins, and the future deadly sins. These are for Erosion-Brosion, but they also make sense in real life, I would imagine. So as you come to know, there are 7 deadly sins based off King James, was it? They're not in the Bible listed as the 7 deadly sins, but some king was like, you know, hey, these are pretty bad, and they'll cause some pretty bad stuff, so I'm gonna call them 7 deadly sins, because there's 7 of them I can think of. And likewise, you know, I can think of plenty more myself. And he connected them to mythology and stuff of the Bible, really, kind of. First of all, you have wrath, as in like anger, or like that would be connected to Satan, obviously. Then you have pride. That's kind of why people speculate Lucifer fell. It was really out of blasphemy, but we'll get on that later. Then you have envy with the Leviathan, envying Israel's status maybe, and that's why he's against Israel. Belphegor with sloth. Gluttony with Beelzebub, because Beelzebub. And then mammon would be greed, and lust would be Modius, or Asmodeus as I put. And I like to say Asmodeus because Asmodeus. But yeah, as you can see on the screen currently, there's levels to this I have given, because there are. Now I haven't given levels to wrath or pride because it's kind of like the Trinity of Satan, or the devilish Trinity as I would call it. So I'm not going to give, you know, the starters there. Even though, like, if you see down here, I didn't give wandering or neutrality to the devil as levels, because I rather not. Wait. Because they're, what was it again? It was like a really lame reason, but it was more like, it was iconic. You know, wrath, pride, and wandering were iconic sins in the Bible. Like, iconic to the devilish trinity. Because Satan, Lucifer, and the devil, they're all, you know, they're like God's trinity. They're like, you know, same people, but in 3 ways. But we'll make another video for that later. And that's why I left them out with levels currently. But you can put levels on them, and there are. Like down here we have arrogance, vanity, and conceit. And arrogance is like a step up from pride, so we'll deal with that later. But for right now, we have the first leveling being jealousy, begrudge, and envy. Now jealousy is obvious. It's like, ooh, I want this from somebody. Now begrudge, let's look this up. And I gotta go to Google for this instead of search.b, because it doesn't give the best definitions. Envy, the possession or enjoyment of something. Now it's envy, the possession or enjoyment of something. And I took that as like, oh, that's a step down from actual envy, because actual envy is envying like a person, like an entirety of something, not a possession or an enjoyment. So that's why I put jealousy at the least, because it's like, ooh, I want that, but it's not begrudging, as I would say, and then it would not be envy. And then laziness, limbo, sloth. You know, laziness, limbo would be like, ooh, but you're kind of stuck in it. And then sloth is, you are it, kind of, I would say. You are slothful, you are lazy. Not you're having some laziness because you did a lot of work or something like that. Surfeit, gorg, and gluttony. Yep. Now I put greed at the bottom, not because I hate greed, but because greed is kind of like actually not a deadly sin in my opinion. It's kind of like a base for deadly sins, as are these. Like jealousy isn't a deadly sin, but it's the base for envy, kind of. And also I put these in 3 ways because it's kind of like 3 things. Like envy, gluttony, and sloth are all sins. They're evil. They're the topmost. But then begrudge, limbo, and gorg, that's all wrong, but that's not evil as evil is. And then I would say jealousy, surfeit, and laziness are really incorrect. So it'd be like jealousy is incorrect, begrudge is, as I said, wrong, and then envy would be evil, or like the utmost of it. And that's how I also put these. Now I put greed as incorrect because greed, we have a lot of greed, and the definition of it is why it's there. Now rapacity and avarice. If we look up avarice, skip rapacity because why not? Extreme greed for wealth or material gain. And I mean, like, there you go. Extreme greed. Greed is a step down from extreme greed. I mean, that just kind of makes sense in my head. Then we have lust, penchant, and addiction. Now, lust is kind of like, usually sexual, but it also doesn't have to be. And then addiction, I put because addiction is kind of like the utmost of lust. I mean, if you want to look up lust with me, here we go. An intense desire or craving for something. I have an intense desire or craving. But then addiction is a habitual intensive desire or craving. So that's why that's there. And then I put penchant in the middle because it's a word I could find. And, I'm doing this leveling kind of stuff. Now, those were the old 7 deadly sins. The present deadly sins, the ones I made up specifically for Erosion-Brosion, but they're as useful in real life as they are. As imposed by, as I said, Satan for incoming spiritualities and positivities, and blah 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 for Erosion-Brosion. This is mainly by Exemits tolling and all that. So 7 again, so now there's 14 deadly sins. The old ones and the present ones. And then there will be 8 in the future ones, as I'll put, for stick mails, tolling, and all that. So the first one I would call the deadliest, and the reason Lucifer actually fell and why anybody would actually fall in the first place would be blasphemy. Being evil just to be evil. Pure evil. Just evil. At first, I wasn't going to put like levels on this because it's pure evil and that's kind of iconic, like wrath or pride. But then, I said, okay, I'm putting the icon, the entrepreneur as the Antichrist, and I already gave levels to the false prophet, but while I was creating this, so I guess I'll give levels to blasphemy, since, I can't put levels, so why not? Except for wrath, pride, and wandering, I guess. So I put like rebellion, then treason and blasphemy. Now I also wanted to put treason as one, but I was like already done with this almost, so I put it as a level under blasphemy because that kind of makes sense. Rebellion, you go against the government of God. Treason, you're kind of furthering your rebellion against God. And then blasphemy is just being evil to be evil, which is kind of the furthest you can go against your rebellion against God, which is what, Lucifer, Satan, the devil did. And blasphemy is like the unforgivable sin, so that's why I'm giving it to the Antichrist, because I already gave the devilish trinity theirs already. But I would give it to Lucifer if pride wasn't already taken by Lucifer. Next up we have lying, deception, and fraud. The false prophet, obviously. Yeah, the false prophet, blah blah blah, lying, deception, fraud. Yeah. Sophistry, delusionalness, and heresy. I'm giving that to Lilith because she thought, if you know the story of Lilith, you gotta, she's a little sophistry right there. Sophistry, here if you want the definition with me, I was learning this in ELA class. The use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving. It was just inputted as a fallacious argument. I didn't know it was with the intention of deceiving, but it can be. And so, as you'll see with these levels too, these sins, these like incorrections and wrongings before the pure evils of the sins, like the highest sins, which is like envy and sloth instead of greed and lust, you'll see like these can work for other kind of deadly sins. Like here, sophistry can work for fraud, and sophistry can also work for like, what did it say? Intention of deceiving with fallacious arguments. Maybe it could work for wrath, but like, it can work for other things too. And yeah, sophistry is kind of like the start to delusionalness. You know, when you tell yourself blah 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 and it's wrong, but you'll never know and it's wrong. So that's why I put it in the middle section. And then the evil would be heresy, which, you know, heresy is like thinking good is evil and evil is good, which I give to Lilith. If you know her story, you know. And then I put, funnily, humbug and sanctimony with hypocrisy. And hypocrisy could work with heresy really well, but hypocrisy and heresy are slightly different. Again, sophistry could really work for hypocrisy, but I rather put humbug there. Really, they're kind of switchable. But, you know, this is how Exemit put it. And I give this one to Kyosa. Now, that's a character I made up. And, yeah, definitely hypocritical. And then sacrilege, iconography, and idolatry. That would definitely go to Baal, or Baal as I used to call it, but I guess Baal isn't it, it would be Baal, says my grandmother. Irreverence, impiety, treachery. Yes, that would definitely go to Exemit, as he challenges God and all that, and challenges Satan to be the most evil as well. And also Baal, obviously, blah blah blah. I don't have much to say about these, except the final one is wandering and well, technically neutrality, but it's also just mainly wandering. Just doing things in a chaotic or unordered way, like a higher level of sloth, I said. To kind of put it lightly, but like, it's not exactly a higher level of sloth. It's more like wandering and being neutral, or like searching for things, but not in a good fashion. You're not like in a chaotic or unordered way. It's like, imagine the biblical story where the Israelites go into the desert to wander instead of listening to God about, you know, some flush lands. Like, that's what wandering is. Or they're trying to go back to something or do this or that differently. And it's a very deadly sin, so I gave it to the devil since he didn't have one. And I would say it's very deadly, like up there with blasphemy, I would say. Because it really depends. I mean, it can be the least deadly and the most deadly. Because wandering can bring you a lot of thoughts and a lot of neutrality from both ends. And it can cause a lot of confusion and diffusion in the way you think of morality. Now, these new virtues of evil do not include violence, egotistical, and other various sins because they are somewhat justifiable. They are true in some aspects too, and just level is not much different from past or current deadly sins. But these are before Stickmail designed his own, with Baphomet and other theoreticals and natures helping him. So yeah, violence and, you know, what did I say, egotistical aren't here because they can be justifiable. Like, God is egotistical. God has an infinite ego, so it's good for him. God also uses violence in Revelation, so it can be justified. And that's why Exemit didn't put it in the present day one. But, you know, for Stickmail, he put it there. And he did. So now we're on to the future deadly sins. We went over 14 of them. Now we got 22. Instead of 9 plus 10 equals 21, I'm putting 7, 7, and 8. Now, Stickmail, you know, he's very controversial in Hells in my story of Erosion-Brosion, so blah blah blah. These were the future ones, he said, but nobody really cared to push them, except, you know, people who believed, I guess, in Hells. Arrogance, vanity, and conceit. Now this is a play against Angelica, one of my other characters, but it is pretty much a different kind of sin to pride and a level up at the same time. It's a type of self-delusion. And it's like, I am the best, not I am better. Like, pride is, I can do better, I can be better. Arrogance is, I am better and all that. So it's slightly different, but again, it could be a level. And vanity and conceit is there too, because they work very hand in hand. And that's also iconic, for me, I guess. And for characters in there. So I didn't give, and I mean, it's kind of its own leveling, but like, the levels are on the same level. Each is wrong, each is evil, each is incorrect, so we're going to have it as that. Then we got astraness, trespass, and recidivism. a tendency to commit crimes again that you already did. This would be like a tendency to commit sins again, which is very deadly. Like if you want to commit sins again because of anything, because of lust or anything, that's kind of its own kind of sin, which would be recidivism. I think that's how you say it. And then I put strayness instead of astrayness, because there's a little difference there. It's not the A, let's look it up, in fact. Astrayness. To be off the correct path or route. And then strayness. To wander from company. So strayness is more personal and has to do with a person. Astrayness has to do with the path and walking off the path. So that's why trespass is there in recidivism. And then strayness is resentment and cold for unfellowship and unfellowship and unloving towards others. Then I put dither and doubtful and dark for unfaithful, not radical enough, which is very deadly if you're not unfaithful or radical enough. And then flagellant, masochism, suicidal would be Raphael. Well, I'm explaining why there's angels here from mythology and biblical conceptions and Jewish conceptions rather than demons in a second here. Inane, trolling, goofy, that would be doing evil for the funny. I think that's perfect for stick mail. And then we have irresolute, vacillate, and unformidable. Well, doing evil for the funny is kind of on the level of blasphemy, so that's pretty deadly. Suicidal is deadly because it obviously kills you. Dark is deadly because it can cause some dark stuff, not radical enough. It causes dark is in industrial society. We're not radical or faithful enough to our own ideologies, so we fail at them. Cold is, the deadly because it's unfellowship, uncare, and so it can cause violence and all that. Unformidable is deadly because you're fearing anything else other than God, and so you may fear an idol, and then you may commit idolatry, and that's another deadly sin. Again, they're working hand in hand. And then finally, the most deadly, violence, obviously, brutality, and unmerciful. As an enjoyance, violence is logical sometimes, but as an enjoyance, no. God does not love violent people who enjoy it. You can commit violence if it's a good thing, but that's very, very, very deep down, and that's very, very specific. And there are supposed to be 8 of them by Stigma's concerns, blah blah blah. And then I was going to start listing the deadliest, but that's really subjective, and it really works for me. The deadliest ones for me I would suppose would be lust and addiction, as well as gluttony. But obviously the deadliest one is blasphemy. And then more so kind of for other people would be probably kufi and cold combined. So yeah, things like that. So why did I put mostly angels here, except for iPost, and most stick mail's a fallen angel from my story. So I put these here because in my story, in Revelations, these angels will fall in my metaphorical fiction, and they will fall to these deadly sins. It's also future deadly sins, as all the demons would do these, so there's no demon or fallen angel to respectfully show, except the fallen angels that first fell. Or I just did this because why not? It's not because why not, but because it made sense in my mind. Be okay, so the past and present obviously have demons and fallen angels, but the future should have angels that are now fallen because of these sins, because that's how dangerous they are. They're not so dangerous that they make some demons or some fallen angels become the princes of them. No, these are so deadly that they didn't need princes, and that they harmed the most holy of angels and stuff like that. That's why Gabriel is here, and Raphael and all that. But that's for my metaphorical Erosion-Brosion story. And that's, the old, the present, and the future deadly sins by me. I I just wanted to go over them and kind of explain it as a video, because I like talking sometimes. I mean, I don't like talking, as you can hear in my voice. I hate talking, but like, yeah, why not? I'm like showing my story off, which is good. So more on this stuff later. If you guys have any questions, ask them. I'll make a video on them probably, but nobody's really watching my content right now. So next up, I'll probably be talking about, what was it? The heavenly virtues. I'm not even done with those yet. But yeah, I'll just find some random words for that later. Anyways, have a good one.